Get started. I would like to call the public safety meeting of September 19th, 2023 to order. Roll call, please.
Candace,
Here.
Kevin,
Here.
Tammy,
Here.
Cameron,
Here.
Randy,
Here.
all present.
Awesome. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, before we get into public comment, first, we're gonna do some life-saving awards for our fantastic public servants here. Chief Tony, do you want to take that away?
Yeah, so, on, would have been Monday, August 21st. We were actually it was almost like during our shift change time. And we were dispatched to assist the Dane County Sheriff's Department. They were quite a bit ways out for a medical emergency outside of our community. So we just happened to have three of us that were there together. And so we all three responded. Officer Nicole Kimball, Sergeant Matt Hudson, and myself responded. EMS was already on scene, as they usually get a medical call first. When we arrived, it was an organized chaos. We were right away tasked with saving a life. And I'm here to recognize my staff, and I know that Chief Smith is here as well to recognize her staff, but I want to recognize my staff for their quick actions. They were instrumental. They didn't hesitate. They got right in there and started doing CPR, switching in and out. Their actions actually saved somebody. And lots of times, and I think Tabitha can attest, we go to these calls and the ending is not that way. Both Tabitha and I have decades of experience, and she can attest to us going to these type of calls. And I can only say in my time, I've only been involved in 3 saves, and I've probably been involved in dozens of cases where we tried and we just couldn't. So the person who was saved is here today. I invited him. If he wants to share his name, that's fine. This is a public meeting, so it's part of our open records and things like that. So I want to respect your privacy, but I'm first going to recognize the officers, and then if you'd like to say something, that'd be fine too. Okay. So first, I'd like to recognize Officer Nicole Kimball with the life-saving award. This is probably second highest type of honor there is. And it's not easy to come by. So I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Also like to recognize Sergeant Hudson for the same honor. Like I said, it's not very hard. It's very hard to come by these awards. They're not easy to do, and it takes a lot of courage to do that. So thank you. These guys can all attest to my statements to them with regards to successes and failures in our department. Failures are the faults of administrators. Successes is all them. So we as supervisors should not take any kind of credit for their bravery. So and we don't, and we shouldn't. So I'm not, although I was there. They were totally instrumental in figuring that out, and I got to see some great stuff, great work. They're highly trained. They're one step away from being instructors in CPR, so it was very timely. So congratulations.
From an EMS standpoint, there was 3 of us on the crew. There was myself and Jordan and Joe Clark. Joe Clark is on his way here. He's running late. He's in a fire class as well. I emulate majority of what he said as far as I'm also an ER nurse. This was my first save. I've been doing this for 30 years. Jordan, I'm not sure, she's also an ER nurse. We don't get this lucky this often, so this is an amazing thing. So, Miss Jordan, I don't have the fancy case. If I see Joe, I recognize him at that point.
Okay,
Otherwise.
thank you very much.
I'm Daniel Dunn, I'm the one they saved, but I just want to thank you all. For being here. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan. Glad to see you up and running.
Yeah.
So. You guys can stay, you can, our agenda will continue, but, again, a high praise to all of you. For being involved and Tabitha and I being able to be witnesses of that makes it even that much greater of an accomplishment. But
Well, thank
thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Well, we're probably gonna get to what Sam just wanted to say, thank you very much to all of you. Yep. Thank you.
It's good to see you this way.
Yep, thank you. Thank you. You're not, you're here. Thank you for being your host. Thank you.
See you later.
Thanks again, buddy.
Take care, Dan.
Yep.
Will you send those to me? Hey, will you take a picture of them together?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I cleared the room.
I was gonna say, clear the room, so we'll go to public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone to address the committee on any issue. Please observe the time limit of 3 minutes. While the committee encourages input from residents, it may not discuss or act on any issue that is not duly noticed on the agenda. Chief Tony, have you received any requests for public comment?
Nope, and I have nobody online and nothing came to me via email.
Okay. And I guess, does anyone have a public comment that is here? Nope. All right. Moving on. Approval of the minutes from our last meeting, which was way back in June. We took the summer off. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting?
Make a motion to approve the June meeting minutes.
I'll second.
All right, got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Perfect. All right, reports of the officers. My primary reports are all covered in discussion topics down below, so I don't have anything for the top here. Anything from any of the members? Okay, very good. And then we'll report from the first responders, so. EMS,
Do you have anything?
do you have anything to report? I guess you don't have to.
No. Nothing really. Holly usually does these.
Problem?
I don't know what she usually says.
She usually provides an update of your department, maybe even, kind of calls that you've had throughout the month or things like
Any
that.
difficulties?
Any,
Yeah,
anything that,
Yes.
talks about staffing levels and things like that.
Since they started in January, we have never been out of service. Staffing has been full. We do have one full-time position vacating. We interviewed 3 people for it, all internal candidates. So we have, I think we're very fortunate. We're one of the few departments where we still have volunteers. We have one volunteer that reached out to us. But that's few and far in between. It's the whole med school hookup where they have to do volunteer hours, so thank you
How many full-time people you have?
for including myself. So we have one spot on the ambulance that is covered by a full-time employee 24/7. We have had, I believe it was 403, is that what she said at the meeting last night? Calls, we're slightly behind. 303, sorry. Slightly behind where we were last year by about 20 calls, however, we switched billing companies. So our revenue is greater. We renegotiated, we did what we needed to do, kind of took that up, shook it out, figured it out, and decided we need a new company. So that's what we did there. We recently had a dedication of a bench outside our department to a longstanding member. His entire family, there was like 35 people there to sit on the bench. Although Bert had passed, his entire family was.
Who was it, Bert Tebow?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a
that-
BURT.
Yes.
BURT.
Thank you,
You said Diebold, right?
yes.
Thank you. It's
Great. I
great.
don't know your fault. It was an excellent
That
update. Yes. Justin, do you have anything from fire?
Yep, 112 calls for the year, 57 of those in the village. We're probably on, I would assume, on track to break last year's record, which is a record here. So calls are going up. The new truck that we ordered 2 years ago now is in production. Pierce has received the chassis, so hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be taking delivery on that. Our pancake breakfast is October 1st. 7:30 to 11:30, something like that. On Sunday, October 1st, that is. And then firefighters we're in 2 joint trainings with neighboring departments. The first one was 2 weeks ago. We sent the truck down to Barneville. They did a pre-plan simulation at Vortex Optics in Barneville, a huge manufacturing facility in Barneville, and they actually were required to do a training or a drill. I believe by their insurance company actually mandated that they do it. So they had everyone on their first and second alarms show up. They actually flowed water outside, and then kind of just did an overall and then a takeaways, kind of lesson learned type thing. And then last weekend we had 5 people go to Middleton, where they burned a house down just on the west end of the city there. It's a farmhouse, so we were able to participate with that. About 6 hours at both those trainings, so good to train with our neighbors. So I have.
Very good. Any chief comment?
Okay, so far we have 2,000, well, as of end of August. So I didn't count anything during this month, but we have 2,066 calls for service. We're at last year was 2,800, so we're in line to topple that number again. Every year since I've been here, we've surpassed that number. If you remember, in 2019, I took over at the end of 2019, first part of 2020, we were at 1,600 calls. So, I mean, we're beating that in 8 months' time and then some. So we're extremely busy. But we're right now we're in a hiring process. We do have we had 3 really good candidates that was recently narrowed down to 2 to make it more feasible as far as our background investigation goes. So I'm conducting background investigation on both of those employees, potential employees. October 10th, we are having another police commission meeting where I will present the backgrounds, and then they will make an ultimate decision of who they want to hire. Both are great candidates. We continue to get lucky and recruit for good quality people. And so I'm excited to have them. And we'll see. As far as staffing goes, I'm pretty much we've retired 3, so there's 3 new staff. In the last 2 years, I think we've retired 3. I do have 1 more that will retire within 3 years. But you know, I could be retired in 3 years, so you might see some significant change within the 3 years time. And then I have another officer who's you know, potentially could look for a different job, a different area. And so ultimately we may have replaced pretty much everybody, and that's kind of the trend right now. People that can retire are retiring, and people that can, you know, move into the private sector are doing that. it's really, it's a lot harder nowadays to recruit for law enforcement. They're getting eaten up pretty quickly, especially in Dane County. It's hard to compete with departments like Madison Police Department and the Sheriff's Department. They're paying a lot higher. But even in our immediate area, Middleton has multiple positions open and they're struggling filling spots. Fitchburg has multiple positions open. They're struggling filling spots. So I'm knock on wood somewhere. We've been lucky and I think a lot of it, when I talk to candidates, why they still continue to apply here or what the attraction is it is predominantly police community relations. I think officers that are joining this want to join departments where it's high level of community involvement rather than high level of enforcement. And it's just, people want to join that profession in a different way rather than just, sitting behind a computer and writing out tickets. And that's our kind of our philosophy is more compliance rather than enforcement. And I think it attracts certain people that are looking for that change. So that's where we are with hiring. My biggest problem right now is squad cars. Squad 16 and squad 17 are causing me a lot of problems. The village board did approve obtaining 2 new squads. So that is probably going to go all the way through the budget process and will happen. They've already authorized for me to even start looking. Problem is that Ford is having some issues filling squad cars. So there were squad cars that weren't built that should have been made in 2023. So now all the allotted squad cars of 2023 have been given to 24 have been given to the 23s. And so I won't see a squad car till probably September. If I'm lucky, I might get something in July, but Middleton Ford is very, very good at pushing to try to get us all squads, but there's agencies like Sun Prairie that want 5, 6, 7, 8 squads. So it's really, right now it's competitive. So some people are going outside of the area, even into other states and things like that, just to try to get a squad. I did price out Dodges. The Dodge Durango is a similar size, similar make, similar everything. It just, there's some obvious differences. It's still a squad package and there's some things, but even with Dodge, it sounds like I would still be about June before I would see a squad. So, I don't know if I want to disrupt the whole fleet into a totally different squad for 3 months time. It may not make sense. And the Dodges are a little more expensive because they're not, the Ford has always been traditionally the squad car. So that's kind of where we're at. And then the last thing I would mention is, so Matt was promoted to sergeant. He is fitting really well in that role. He's right now he's still in training, doing a lot of training with me with regards to investigations. And then in leadership type of training and some things to help him just fit into that mold in that position of middle management. But he's taking him on pretty good and he's working out very well. So that's all I have.
So with the hiring of coming in October, then where will that put the staff level?
It would put us at full staff at that
Okay.
point.
Okay, good.
So we would be fully
And
staffed.
as chief, fire chief, how's your staff? Are you from?
We're at 35 firefighters. We have 44 lockers, so we're right at probably the lowest we've been at, but we're still averaging 8-9 firefighters per call, so which is good. But if I have 10 people knocking on the door, I put them on.
Very good. Any other questions?
Just a question, related to obviously the Ironman event and a lot of responses, and I just wanna, ask about that and then see how everyone's doing from staff perspective that were there and they getting the support they need and how's everyone doing?
From an EMS standpoint, we've been doing a deep dive our medical director is doing a deep dive into the patients and also who was there, what happened, how did this happen? You know, just trying to piece it all together. And our crew has consistently said, we did everything we could, we feel good from our care standpoint, not good about the outcome, but ultimately he was transferred, but was not a candidate for ECMO. So, which is what, you know, was initially hoped and dreamed and thought, but yeah, unfortunately, the outcome and just, you know, figuring out what happened.
Yeah, I was curious, thank you for the update, I was curious too, just about the mental health side of, you know.
Yeah.
Staff.
From that standpoint, they, all three have been checking in with them and they're all like, doing okay, doing okay. It was, you know, they were like, the driver is not an EMS, we sneak drivers from fire. Come drive with us, come, be a driver, kind of thing, and so he was a military medic, but that unfortunately doesn't cross over. So, but he was like, it was, you know, reaching out to him, he said it was extremely organized, he was impressed with the organization and how it worked and everyone had a role and just the outcome was not fair.
So like, for instance, the case, we just had a debriefing on it and, we meet on a quarterly basis. So that's one of the topics that we'll be talking about, maybe even hiring somebody or having someone on standby, more of a professional debriefer for these things. I think those things kind of go on unnoticed, and anybody who's been in law enforcement, for a long time knows that those things go unnoticed. We just kind of just pack them on and fortunately some of us are able to find ways to digress and get that off of our brain and function on a normal basis, but some people don't, and then they turn to vices and all kinds of other things, and it becomes a big issue. So debriefings is something we're going to be talking about. We have a meeting coming up October 24th. So us department heads, the chiefs, I've started that, what was it, about 3-4 months ago, just so we can kind of talk about our departments and see how we can help each other, crossover training, you know, just the more we work together, the easier it will be for anything. And even just finding, isolating incidents of mental wellness, because their staff works with my staff and fire, and everybody's kind of working in that same arena. And if we can build a really strong trust between all of us, then we, you know, maybe somebody could isolate or identify, you know, somebody having a mental break.
So
or
are there debriefers available?
yeah.
So
There used to, I know back in the day, there were.
Yeah.
County like that.
Yeah.
earlier this year, we had a pretty bad incident, and it shook a few of the members of fire and us up. And so we reached out to the county. The county has a debriefer, but it comes from the Milwaukee area. We have a local member who is, she has her doctorate in psychiatry. She took the class. Her husband is one of the contenders with EMS, and she took the class, so she is now in the process of becoming. She's a certified debriefer.
So we'll have a
So
certain.
she's gonna be local and we'll be able to help out as needed.
And I think then we could also have a crossover, you know, there's chaplain programs and things like that, which I'm heavily involved in. So we could have that kind of dual way of dealing with it. So we want to bring it to our staff, because I think mental wellness is probably at the forefront for especially younger generation people, where, you know, what my generation was, my parents were like, toughen up, I don't want to hear about it, figure it out. It's not that way in this generation. We're expected to try to help people out and figure things out for them and give them the resources. So I think as leaders, we understand that and we see it, you know, so it'll be something we will definitely be addressing.
Any other questions? All right.
Can I just make
Yeah.
one last comment? I just remembered, I said I would. So we've had some incidents where people are passing school buses and not understanding the actual law with regards to school buses. We just had somebody on Bourbon Road pass a school bus on the right side with the door still open, kids in the kids in the stairwell. So obviously they received a citation, but I posted something on Facebook, on our Facebook page. If you would please go on it and share it. I want to get the message out as far as we can. I think some people just get confused as to what to do and get startled and whatnot. And then some people are just in a hurry because they're running behind and then they're just passing whatever. We've had only the one incident this year, and probably in the time I've been here in 4 years, we've probably only had about half a dozen of them. We've actually seen a couple where we've been parked in a certain area and seen them happen. But the county gets quite a bit of them. And by the time you get a vehicle description, they're long gone. And so it's just, especially, 14 is a big one. People are just flying back and forth. So if you could just share that post, I'd appreciate it. The transportation center sent out a letter and I just kind of turned it into more of a Facebook post, but if you would share it, I'd appreciate it. Okay, now I won't.
Very good. No, you're fine. Okay, we will move on to our discussion topics. Number one, update regarding the municipal court fine schedule. I guess, do you want me to take this or do you want to take it?
I mean, I can talk about it. I think we need to be done with it. We're hitting a bunch of walls as far as sharing of court fines. And what we are finding is we're not way out of whack. Some of them are a little heavier and some of them are lower, but in the end, they're all kind of the same. The drug ones we're in line with communities that are even bigger than us. For instance, marijuana. I mean, you can Madison citation is $1. So and our citation is $400. So you can find anything and everything in between. So if it takes you, it's like more to print that ticket out than the buck that you're going to collect, right? So they don't write those tickets. So I think we're good. I'm not finding anything, and I didn't do a lot of research, but I think we just put it on here to kind of, I think.
Still, like, people are hesitant to share their.
Yeah, it's very weird. I mean, we've sent record requests. We've gotten some, which is what you prepared. But some are not sharing the costs. I don't know if it's landing in the wrong hands or it's just being ignored or.
I think a lot of my run-ins just seemed like it was, my asks was kind of probably a low priority thing on their day-to-day or whatever, and it got dropped and.
But even based on what you've collected, it's pretty consistent.
No, I agree completely.
So it's been a agenda item for quite a few meetings.
Yeah, and we just think it needs to be taken off of here.
I'll make a motion when we leave things as they are.
Well, we don't have any possible action on this one, so we can't.
Oh, we can't motion.
We can't take any.
I'm just not gonna bring it back.
Yeah.
If that's the consensus of the group.
And unless this group, has a strong opinion the other way.
I guess I'm utterly shocked that municipalities won't share their fee schedule.
I don't know if it's that they won't or that it's just not a priority. I mean, because I think didn't you try it even, right?
Yeah, it was,
What's the?
It's,
over there in Black Earth.
it's just been difficult, so.
So move on.
Yeah, I think when Chief Tony and I talked about it, I think we just, unless it's coming up again, if the public has some major concerns or if the village board has some major concerns.
Comes up next year.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, even if we got that other data, I mean, there's like 15 other steps to go, with the court and with the village board and with all that stuff. And just, I think we just let it lie unless,
And it might be that it's hung up on the fact that, so we don't have authority over fines. We would recommend they be adjusted, but the judge ultimately is the deciding factor. So maybe that's where it's hanging up. I don't know. but, you know, you'd have, and I did talk to our judge about it, and he said, you know, he'd be in favor of adjusting a little, but. I mean, not anything major unless you could show just cause for do that we were completely out of line. And he said I would have to approve them, and then village board would kind of. Yay, but
Let's move on.
yeah, I'm. And you guys know how I feel. I just don't feel the police department should be doing much research on that. I just don't want us to turn into a department that has to issue tickets, so we're somehow fixing a budget or just the sense that that's what's happening. I don't like it at all.
Just quick question though, we had some discussion and spent some time on this obviously in the previous meetings and, you know, did the review of those that we had some transparency to. Curious though, I don't recall about the discretion to write a ticket.
Mhm,
So these are court fees,
mhm.
but then there's still discretion
From us, yeah,
from the department, right?
yeah. Unless this discretion is pretty open, unless it doesn't fall within our standards of practice. So if like, for instance, in the village, there's no discretion, in my opinion, if somebody's caught with drugs. I mean, we don't want people using drugs, abusing drugs, driving while drugged. So there's no real discretion there. None of our officers would look the other way on something like that. Stealing, I mean, we're enforcing the law. Anything, I mean, there's certain things that are not, there's no discretion on, like domestic violence type stuff. But disorderly conduct is one that you can use some discretion, like, okay, does this rise to a level of citation, or should we just say, hey, you know, let's just don't do this again, and we would document it anyway, so we would be able to find out if we have a habitual. Same thing with discretion on animal violations, or, you know, those kind of things. I mean, those are highly discretional. Same thing with traffic. There's an area of discretion, and then there's certain things that, you know, if somebody's doing 10-15 miles an hour over in the school zone, there's probably not going to be much wiggle room there. So
Sounds good.
All right,
so are you comfortable with that? Us going with not doing anything more with it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm comfortable with it, you know, there's nuances to it that. Some of them are a little out of whack, relatively speaking, but, ultimately, I think those are the recommended. And it's, to your point, a lot of it's based, you know, by the judge too.
Mhm. Yeah.
all right. We will move on. Discussion and possible action regarding EMS merging onto Highway 15 from Caesar Street. No, Kaiser Street. Wow, Caesar?
Caesar, yeah.
I've been saying Caesar, but now I'm reading it. and I would-
It's actually that Caesar.
Okay, yeah, sure. So this comes from an email that was passed to me from Chief Tony from EMS. I guess either you can talk about it or we have EMS here.
So. I don't know if all of you know where the station is, and then as we go to get onto Highway 14, we use Caesar. We don't always go lights and sirens. When dispatch prioritizes, the county uses priority dispatch, so they'll say, you know, Alpha is, or it could even be an Omega, which is just really kind of a glorified taxi. They just really need a ride kind of thing, and it goes all the way up to Echo, which is the pulseless non-breathers, like the Iron Man. We don't always go lights and sirens, so when it's rush hour, and I'm just looking for thoughts and suggestions when we have to merge onto 14. It is nearly impossible. Where Caesar is just after the race to one lane. So now they've got the race to one lane, and oh my gosh, there's an ambulance, even if we are lights and sirens. It just seems kind of dangerous. The traffic is increasing annually, and I don't know of another you know, well, the ideas I've come up with are the blinking red lights. You know, there's an emergency vehicle entering. Statistically, they don't work. Statistically, they're more confusing than they are helpful. Thought about going the opposite way, which would be the other side of the post office, which is a one-way. Then you go down a block, that's Remington's, which is increased traffic. And now you go down 3 blocks to get 3 blocks the other way. It just
Keep
needs
going to
another
get Black
perspective to get out onto the highway. So I talked to Tony about it. And I asked, you know, what are your thoughts? Do you think this is something we should bring up to the safety committee? See if any of these smart brains have any other thoughts, anything that, you know, would be more beneficial. We obviously can't wiggle through the neighborhoods either. Unfortunately, we're not a very well gridded.
No,
So-
well, it's really especially over there.
One now, yeah.
Well, I mean, like I explained, to Tabitha, and it was not to poke a joke, but welcome to our world, because that's us like every call. You know, sometimes you get to that main street, you're like, come on, I do have to get there. So what we've done, and my staff kind of just knows to do it, we blip our lights, slow people down, and then get into that traffic and shut them off. I haven't received any complaints, but I know that, like, for instance, in Darlington, we didn't have the same traffic, but when you did that, every now and again, somebody would come to me and file a complaint and say, your officer's just trying to, you know, get into the traffic, and, you know, they made me stop, and it took them longer to get to my office than the time it took them to just stop there, right? So that we check into that, you know, make sure that they're not abusing it, and they weren't. They're just trying to merge into traffic, and we do that even now. I mean, all the time. Main Street's horrible. Even worse is if you get stuck. I've been stuck over on Evergreen at school when the school zones are going on, you know, on a call, and then we get another call, and now I got to go through like all this traffic, you know, to get around. I know that I've asked about Highway 14, you know, like putting lights and stuff, because it's been brought up here to have more additional beacons. Now that's why we have the red flags out there for kids to cross. My understanding is that during the construction, DOT only allowed so many beacons in their plan, and it's at the max of what it would allow. And I would agree with you 100%. People don't obey that flashing light. Over on Bourbon Road, there's a flashing light for stop signs right by the park. I've had people go through that at 30 miles an hour. They don't even say a stop sign, much less the flashing light. We have one over by the school that gets rolled through. You know, people get used to that light and don't even think of it. So I don't personally have an answer, but like Tabitha and I talked, we said maybe bring it here, and we might not have an answer, but.
When we bleep and come out, you can know what we're doing. And we shut off our lights when we get to where we need to be, and whenever the citizens are, I call it book face, when they're jumping on the book face, and just
It seems to
be
be.
kind to us. 'Cause
With a little bit of previous life experience, it would be. Use your lights and sirens as you need them to get out of the traffic. You gotta shut down. And if we have 3 people come in and complain about it, we'll just deal with it. You gotta get to the cause.
Yeah.
There's no.
Yeah.
I don't believe.
I mean, if somebody complained to me about EMS bleeping their lights getting into Main Street, it's not gonna go very far,
Well,
because it's just like, well, they need to.
legally, you do not have to give the right of way.
Yeah, no, you're right,
It's fine.
right? Yeah,
Legally, you can stay in your lane. We're just asking for it.
yeah.
So if they don't,
Mhm.
there's nothing we can
I
do.
would just say short of a big answer, I was just lights and siren until you get out of the traffic and do what you gotta do.
Okay.
And I think if that's gonna be the answer, we just, as a group, we need to really defend that, you know, to the community and that kind of thing.
And I'll with the staff too, I'll let them know. If it's rush hour and if, you know, if there's 3 cars, no. You know, because you're gonna have to explain it when the complaints come in. That kind of thing. Justify it.
Okay.
Hear that? All right.
I don't know if this will make you feel better, it might not, but I used to work for the city of Eau Claire, all of their emergency departments, and there was something about a police car versus an ambulance and a fire truck, like people treated them differently, so I feel like especially you guys are gonna have less of a chance of someone getting upset about that with an ambulance, whereas I know, which and I don't understand
doubt.
why that exists, but I mean, but you said, I mean, your officers already do that if they need to, and I mean, you're not
Yeah.
getting a lot of complaints today, it's probably gonna be okay.
Yeah, fire and EMS, I mean, yeah, you guys are,
They're also bigger
you guys
vehicles.
are the heroes.
You're all heroes.
Well, I mean, yes, you all are heroes. I think it's something about people think, you know, it's just like there's one cop in the car and so they can, you know, get away with whatever they want. Whereas an ambulance definitely has more than one person. A fire truck definitely has more than one person.
Yeah.
I was gonna
That's
ask you
true.
if you did. I was gonna say, I know, police cars didn't, but anyway, okay, so no action on number 2. Again, try it out and come back if there's a problem. I mean, I can
We have
escalate
our
this.
support to use whatever you need.
Well,
Yeah.
all right, perfect, thank you.
I can also escalate this to the board. We can also have, the planning committee, I mean, not that there'd be anything that they could likely do in the short term, but just like. I mean, there's, you know, maybe long-term planning of that area, if there's any development, you know, or is there a new place that we should be thinking that EMS should be, you know, all of those things would be something that planning could pick up.
I wondered, you know, you talk about the next street over is a one-way. I wonder if allowing for emergency vehicles to, because I've seen one-ways, this is a one-way, unless you're an emergency vehicle.
Yeah, legally we can go down it with lights and sirens.
Yeah,
And
for
that's
sure,
the drive.
for sure, yeah.
I just don't want people, because we're all kind of complacent, but all right, I can turn it.
Mhm,
I can
yeah,
cut
no,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
No,
You know,
I
it's
get
a
it.
one thing. So all of a sudden, boom, there's the ambulance. Only have one ambulance, so I really have to be particular
Yeah.
to not crash it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, I don't know if you got the answer you wanted, but I think you've got the support for
We'll
sure.
try this and see what happens and go from there. It's not all the time, but it's.
So I saw the email, I drove through there, I mean, I drive through it all the time, but like, I was really thinking about it a couple of times, and I was like, man, like, I don't know, like, you know, we could put signs, but you know, it's, you know, they don't, you know, lights and all this stuff, but yeah. It's a tough spot.
Glitter.
Yeah.
Confetti cannons every time you guys are.
Yeah, you could do that.
All right,
Stoplights, put all the stoplights at red, and we'll have a little bit of wind that you could get out, like, I don't think you can do that, but.
No.
Nice of you.
It would be nice.
alrighty,
Right.
moving on, oh,
The next 4 are just, you guys asked us to look into them and I looked into them, so I have a response for every one of them.
do you wanna go through them?
Yeah, you can just like list them out and I'll.
I need to-
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you, yeah, no, thank you guys,
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Take care.
Yeah,
Maybe they'll let-
I saw that, thank you.
repainting the pedestrian lines on Park Street. I did not get an email from Brian that said this ticket item was done specifically. I did get a, hey, we got the painters and they're gonna go out throughout the next week. This was months ago.
It's done.
So that one I'm assuming is
Yeah,
done.
it's done. I went and traveled that. It's been accomplished. There was some issues with the paint, anything with the paint became a paint problem. And so all of that, the paint problem has been fixed. And, there was a couple of fired off emails to the right people and it got done. So Park Street is done. I just traveled it this week to double check to make sure it's bright and it is, it's set the way it was.
Okay. The Military Road one, is done as well, including the no parking during school signs. I drive past that one every day. The no parking during school signs are kind of small, but
They are
the
small,
paint is bright,
but
so
the paint is bright and they extended it. So now in that, you know how
Can't
you've
get
got
stuck.
that, you can't get stuck in there. You know how you've got that little island as you're trying to get on. It's been extended, so nobody will be able to park there and get stuck there. The signs are a little small, but but there's enough of them that you can, you know what they're trying to get to. And they basically say no parking during school hours because that is still pretty heavily used during a baseball game.
Yes,
So if you've been down there for a ball game, it's packed all the way on Church, every parking lot, and then they use that as well. But now there's a little bit of more leeway to have people get around it.
and the good news on that is that baseball and school to school, you know, they don't usually run around the same time or whatever, so yeah, in summer, it's always like, oh, here, the cars are parked. But, you know, then they go away and then when school comes in, so, hopefully people aren't parking there. When there isn't a baseball game. Okay, red flag program,
It's up and
I
running.
see them all out.
They're all in every location that was asked. We had the flags. It was the containers and we had to get public facilities to put those up and they did and flags went up. So we got them up before school. They were in the sun. They were up middle of summer. I think we had them up and just like everything else. I mean, public facilities is extremely busy with, you know, with all this that's going on. And so it was on their to-do list. It just wasn't at the top of the list. We did reduce it to writing and it got done. And so they're all up and so far we haven't lost any flags. So it looks like they're all there.
No, I think they're being used.
Oh,
I've
for
been
sure.
watching them.
I watched them use it.
Yeah, I saw that on Main Street,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah,
and I see other people using them, which is great.
yeah, they're being used. There's no doubt.
Very good, and then the stop sign on North Hill.
I'm
This is the
sorry.
one- oh,
It's not a stop sign.
It's
It's
a mistake.
it's a speed sign.
I was just looking at the emails last night, and yeah, it's a speed limit sign.
And
This one I don't know about because I don't drive
It's
over
up.
there.
it's up and there's a little bit of funniness to it because it says 25 miles per hour, but then there's an ATV sign that says like 35 miles per hour. So ATVs, but it doesn't mean that it increases to 35 in the county. It's just, it was ill placed and I don't know.
That's not ours, right?
Yeah, no, I don't know what, I don't, yeah, I guess, I don't know, but.
Someone said the ATV sign got pushed back.
And so it did now, it did, I haven't checked it. It was funny because it was all, because then they started hitting us on Facebook, like, okay, this makes no sense. Cars 25, ATVs 30, but. And then I went down and looked at it, it was weird, because it was like, one was this way, like, yeah, it's,
We
wow.
own that sign, we don't own that sign.
Yeah.
so-
But now it's been pushed back and so I hadn't checked that, so.
I heard it was.
So that is up and there's, they even went one step further and dropped a flag in it. So it not only is a sign up, but then there's kind of a red flag that says, hey, I'm here. So,
Alright. Does anyone have any questions on those?
No, thanks for following through on those and poking a little bit to get them done.
yeah,
That's awesome.
if you guys remember, Laufenberg Boulevard was a topic probably a year and a half ago, remember, about speed and stuff. We may have to revisit that. We are getting more traffic through there. People are, but right now, I don't wanna say that it's people, I think it's workers. Blowing through stop signs and kind of just driving back and forth that are still kind of
Getting
building
into
stuff up there.
development,
Yeah, that are building things there. So I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but we are getting some complaints and we've made some traffic stops. We've talked to some foremen. We've done some things to get them to slow down. The Brewery Road one, I went down and talked to like all the way up to the engineer because they were really driving really fast with skid loaders and just, they're trying to stay on time and some of that is, you know, they were starting a little earlier, so we we're getting those kind of complaints like, hey, these guys are out here at 7 and the ordinance is at certain hours. And so we've navigated some of those things and I think we're good because I haven't, knock on wood, I haven't received a complaint there for a couple weeks now, so.
In the same discussion, these four items that we're looking for updates around just our streets and safety. I recall that there was another one on Valley Street, there was a request.
Yeah, that was denied.
It was, okay.
That was
Perfect.
denied.
I was wondering what the update was.
Yeah.
I believe it was the east side of.
Yeah, to make it no parking.
Make it no-
Yeah,
Or to remove it over.
I think it was one of the two,
One
but
of
it was, some residents came to the village board
Yes,
and
that was it.
they denied it.
They
They
did,
said,
okay,
we're just gonna leave it as is.
okay,
So they didn't want to take it out.
gotcha, thank you.
Right. Okay, so that is all of our discussion items. I guess before we ask for future items of discussion, Chief Tony and I were talking and, well, actually, I'll just let you take this away.
So.
Regurgitating what you know.
So when I first started here in 2020, the committee, I think Randy, you were on it. Tammy, were you on it? Yeah, Randy was on, you were on it, weren't you, Kevin? When I first started here.
Randy, but yes.
So when I,
All right, meeting adjourned.
when I started, first of all, we didn't include fire and EMS. And so that's a great addition to us to, this is a public safety committee. So that was one of the first things I wanted to fix. But the main thing was Jay Langfeld was president at the time, which he still is. And he had asked me to really make this committee a strong committee because you guys weren't even meeting. And if you remember, we had like a dozen of things that we had to address. And then all of a sudden I started bringing you all kinds of things. Well, all that good work, the tasers, the less than lethal, the body cameras, we've, turned the ship around. It's full steam ahead. Now I think we need to try to really be proactive in looking for things. So we don't just become where we show up and we're done and we're not, not finding things. So I've challenged my staff to be out when you're out on patrol, you see something that you think is a traffic issue or a problem. And I'm gonna, that was a topic I was gonna bring up at our meeting on the 24th with the department heads of, the other two chiefs, just talking about ideas, including things that might cost money to repair, capital improvement type stuff. We could really do a lot with this committee. We're kind of past all of the old stuff and brought the department up to a good spot. At least for the police department. I'm still pushing for, there's still commitment from the village board to get us to a 24-hour department. For that, I need at least 2 staff members to really feel comfortable, but I'm really pushing them to add at least 1. Within this next year or 2, that's something I'm really going to be pushing and looking for. Our call volume alone is enough to support it. But just so we always have someone on. So those are things that we can work on, but we just want to kind of challenge all of us, all of you. If you see something or hear something, bring it to the committee and we'll just start working on it, including things that cost money, because I know like Kevin has been very vocal about funding is really not our cup of tea. Really, it's not. We should take it into account, but who and how and how they find money is really not really the concern. One of the things that came from this committee is the lights on the boardwalk. If you remember, they're still working on that. So that's a big deal and a very, very expensive deal. So they're working on it. We made the recommendation. They know it's something that needs to be done and probably should have been done when they built the boardwalk. So we just want to challenge all of us to really start looking at, how to make this community better and safer and all of those things. That's it.
Well, having been on this committee I just realized it's 8 years now. Wow. How active we've been the last few years, but I totally encourage fire and EMS to be here. I just want to help if they need help. I think it can be a big help. The other thing, I haven't been to a meeting. I missed a couple of meetings. The progress on the new village hall and police department.
It's moving forward. So you probably know this building's been sold.
I did not.
Yeah, this building's been sold. I think there's already the contracts in place. I think they already gave earnest money. I think there's all of that stuff's been, the property where the police department is scheduled to go is on Bourbon Road right next to that. And that's been purchased. So that property's been purchased. I think there's still some argument whether a police department and village hall municipal building could actually fit in that location on top of everything else that's proposed, like 100 parking stalls. I just can't envision all of that there. It just seems like it's hard to envision that. But the planning is scheduled. They're securing grant funding. There's grants that have been applied for and received. And the next step is engineering design. We're already starting to look at the IT needs for that building. Just modernizing the building, that kind of thing. My department, we meet on a monthly basis just to go over department issues, and then I usually train them on something. One of the segments of our department meeting is about the design of the department. I'm gonna start having them tour other police departments. I want them to be involved in, they're the ones that are gonna ultimately police here. I mean, I'm gonna retire and, so at some point, it's gonna be someone else's, work. And these are very young officers that could potentially be here for, like Scott. I mean, why not? Scott was here 30 years. Why can't Matt be here 30 years? I think, part of the fix is gonna be a nicer place for them to go and feel like they've got something of their own. And then the other part is the money, and that's being worked on right now, some compensation plans for future, not focused on current, but how do we retain them and how do we, help them along as, I've got one staff member, and she will tell you that she lives paycheck to paycheck here. And that's ridiculous for a police officer to live paycheck to paycheck. I mean, that's a profession. You shouldn't have to live there. And so she would have to move out of the village to like a much lower rent place so she could save a buck. And that we need to fix that. It's not okay, so but that's where we're kind of at. So that gives you a little kind of where we're going, but the building is the number one project, I think, for the village at this point.
I'll add just a little bit to that. I don't have any details on the building. What, like, from a macro finance perspective though, what is, we already approved in the capital improvement plan for next year, the architecture work. So that's the, the crunchy engineering and working with the police officers, on like what they want and everyone else. And then, seeing if it'll fit in that spot and all that stuff. And then the plan is then, to actually go forth and build it in 2025 would be construction start then, and using next year for the planning.
And it's not that long. You think about it, the village board meets once a month. So and we spend 3 months working on the budget. So it's not a lot of meetings to get all this stuff done. So starting in 24, it's going to be really productive. It's going to be really fast. So having everybody, all those departments and the different committees really working on their own to make this happen.
We'll have a part for sure.
Yeah, we will definitely have a part. I know that Jay envisions, public safety and even the police commission to have a part in it. I mean, it should be encompassing, so.
Another topic, moving off that one. Kind of back to origin and kind of the genesis of me being asked to be on public safety. A lot of that stemmed from my own personal impact with a couple properties and family members, myself included in the 2018 flood and the emergency plan revision. Jay had high on the agenda at that time for public safety to work on. Just wondering if
it's done.
Been touched, and I know you were taking some of that on.
That's been approved by village board. I think you missed the meetings where we had it. No, I revamped that whole plan. Justin was part of our committee.
Is that an output from this? Would you say?
It covers all of that. So we have a very updated plan, and the plan, when they made me emergency management director, I'll be honest with you, I was embarrassed with the plan that I was handed. And so I said that this needs to be fixed. And if you're going to make me in charge, we're going to do it right away. And so we kind of put together a team, and everybody kind of helped with the plan. But right now I can't share it because it has a lot of, it would be our plan in case of an emergency. But it's been reduced to a checklist. So literally the plan actually sits in each one of our squad cars. They take it on duty, so they're ready to go in case we have an emergency. It's a general emergency, so like a flood would fall in that. I'm working on specific plans for individual stuff, like if we have a plane crash here, we have a flood, or if we,
Very
you know,
catastrophic events,
very
yeah.
specific, you know, things that are liable to actually happen here. So, I mean, that plan will be something that I'm working on into next year. This plan that's been worked out, basically it has a checklist. If you're the fire chief, you could get right to your checklist and go, okay, I need to make this call, I need to talk to this person. And it's very streamlined. It took me like 8 months to literally work through that process. So it's done, and it's been approved by a village board. It was approved by this committee, but I think you were gone that day, so sorry we didn't
No,
include you
thank you.
in that, but
Thank
yep,
you
it's
for
up to
that.
date. It's been accomplished.
To your point, though, that there's been a lot of, I think, good progress and things being, moving through the public safety committee and
The last 2.5 years compared to the previous 5 years, it's insane.
And I'm just glad, we've been working hard. It's really good. The next plan is actually to test that plan. So I bought a map, as part of emergency management. This map, I'll bring it at the next meeting so you guys can see it. It actually covers our village. And so we'll actually, and from the top down, it's very detailed map. So I could use it in an incident. We could pull this out and say, okay, this is where the problem is in a command post pretty easily, and set things up and get things in motion. But it also is going to work for our tabletop exercise. And so we'll include you guys in that tabletop exercise. In January, we'll have to revisit the plan, it should be a yearly working document. So we need to look at it, make sure, that it's still in line, everything's up to date. I've already had to make changes because, like, for instance, in the old plan, Erica Jensen was the chief. So I had to, I got to move her out and put in Tabitha's information. She then promoted someone to be her assistant. So that adds those. So that's why it's a working document. So we're constantly working it. And then we'll, as part of the emergency management team, which is really department heads, they will, keep working on that. And then the plan is in 2024, maybe shortly after summer, maybe fall or something, we'll do a tabletop exercise. We'll do it right here. We'll say, hey, something just happened, and all of you guys can be role players, and we can talk it through and see where our deficient, and actually work the plan. Would be nice to do it once every 3 years. It would be good, just so we are ready.
Cool. And I think it's less about tooting the horn of any individual person here for sure, but as a committee, and I think for me, knowing that I'm a part as a volunteer, like many of us are, that we're part of something that has output that's meaningful. It would be, similar to these 4 items that we asked for updates on. If we ever did like a summary of what we've done and what's come through here in the last 3, 4, 5 years and shared that publicly, I think that would be powerful. And Pam, you're maybe the newest member.
That's me.
Cameron, sorry. But I think a lot of questions about how can I be involved in the community. You don't know what the committee is doing, and is it of value, or are you really getting the thing done?
Do you have any issue with me? You know how I prepare the annual report?
Yeah.
Can I just add it to that annual report?
Yeah, I
Public
think so.
Safety Committee accomplishments,
Yeah.
In the last 3-4 years, and kind of highlight those things. And I think it would sit there well, and it's a record that anybody could have and access. So
Yeah, and I think, whether it's Cameron from the board perspective and stepping in and saying, here's what I inherited and what as I look back type of thing, and you share that, publicly with the village board, or with, whether it's Facebook or something. I think there's value to that, I guess is my point.
yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah, I would be happy to do that. I would be less good at building the documents since I've only been here since April, but
Yeah, I can make it part of our 2023 report, and then maybe Cameron could I mean, it'll be in the report, but I will step away and you can just, as the chairman, speak about those accomplishments in the report. And then we'll kind of share it on Facebook, you know, too.
Doug,
and
Doug will still
talk
be on the
about it.
board too, so
Doug-
he can add it.
Doug
for
will
the
be
stuff.
there, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, no, I think that's a really good idea.
Okay, I'll make sure I include that.
Not only from like a morale thing, but as you said, like maybe even a recruitment thing, you know.
Yeah.
Getting the public involved on, I mean, not just this committee, I mean, every committee, you know, runs into, you know, it's hard to get people involved and we're always trying to find ways to. Get
Right.
more people just to be involved in the community. and
I
help
think
out.
we're extremely high functioning, but it's, you know, having some fresh.
High functioning, I like.
Having some fresh folks coming through every now and then, is good, so, you know, I wouldn't have a problem, you know, stepping away if. We have, you know, some others that are interested too.
Well, you're not getting on.
Well, I'm
that
saying
easy.
now I don't wanna do this if this is a tool for you to leave.
There you go.
Yeah, so now,
No.
yeah, you.
It's not really gonna work out like that.
Yeah, can't
That's
you
it.
strike it?
Did I say that loud?
Yeah.
I just thinking that.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
Okay. Any other future items of discussion? People got right now? Okay, so again, keep your ear to the ground for topics. And then scheduling the next meeting,
So it's the 17th at 7, that's the third.
well, yeah, so, but we had talked about maybe going to. Every other month,
Yeah, I
you know,
mean,
it's up to this, you know, I don't have a strong opinion on it, or we should talk about it, and now's the time.
Well, I think we're an issue driven committee and I think right now we've kind of.
We're at a really good spot. We really are.
Accomplished a bit, so I'm okay with every other one.
Should we just plan for a November and then maybe leave it? Kind of works out nice because then you have a November and then we come back January fresh.
Yeah.
So just maybe a recap.
November then?
Yep, we can do that.
Which one was it?
The 21st,
21st is what, is the
that's a
third,
Tuesday.
third Tuesday?
Yep, it's the third Tuesday.
Is that tricky week?
It
Oh,
might be for you.
yeah,
Wow.
Oh, it is,
that's Thanksgiving week, does that
yeah,
matter?
it is, well,
Do you wanna do the 14th just because?
As in Thanksgiving.
I won't be able to be here, but we can still have the meeting.
heard the fact.
Or we leave November and December out and agree to meet next month. And then leave the Thanksgiving and Christmas months out.
Yeah,
That's fine.
Yeah.
That way,
Yeah.
because I'm sure that everybody has Christmases even in November, so let's just, why don't we just plan the 17th and then I'll just say we're done for the year unless something huge comes in, which we can fend them off. And then my plan is in January or February, I'll present that I'm gonna try to do it early on in the year. It's just usually I'm waiting for the numbers and stuff, but January, February, I'll present the annual report like I did last year.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody will be this 17th at 7.
all right. Motion to adjourn,
I'll move to adjourn.
second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We don't need to go to opposed.